Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In phase 2, turning your Jeep into an RV. Last time we were here, we installed a new inverter, put 110 outlets throughout the Jeep so that he has the ability to plug things in. But today, we're going to tackle all the 12 volt stuff. We're going to put in some new switch panels, get rid of some old stuff, move some stuff around, make it a little bit more easy to deal with. Let me show you what we got so far. If you remember, we ripped out this water pump for his shower, which had this really bulky 4-switch panel on it, and it used to sit up here, so it actually takes up a lot of room. We're going to be getting rid of this. We're going to be moving that, cleaning some of this wiring up. This guy is so that he can turn on all the backup lights that are in his bumper when he's camping if he wants to. So this is just like a secondary jumper. So when you do hit the reverse lights, they come on, but if you wanted to, you can hit them on a switch. That relay goes to it. So we'll be cleaning all of this up, tightening up all this wiring. But then let's move to the front. Up front is kind of a mess. So this radio was mounted on the center console, but then the seat you can't move the seat forward and back because the radio's in the way. So we're going to be yanking this guy out. This old switch panel here is actually taking up a lot of real estate, so we're going to be moving that. This rear view mirror, which is amazing, I don't know which one it is, but it's pretty awesome. It was plugged into the cigarette lighter, so we're going to get rid of that power, actually wire it somewhere. We're going to be getting rid of that cigarette lighter so that we can install some USB ports. And yeah, just cleaning up some of the stuff. There was some wiring that was just, this is for the tail lights, this is just some wiring we need to clean up. There's a big old Bluetooth speaker up here, which I do know was this, so we're going to plug that back in, tidy all that up. And how are we going to do that, you ask? Auxbeam switch panels. Let's show you what we got. This is the new slim 4-button switch panel for the back. And we're going to be doing the slim 6-panel for the front. These are pretty neat. Let's see what's in the box. So inside of this one we got your main controller. So this is so much smaller than what he currently has, and we'll show you what he's currently got, but this is so much smaller than this. That's it. You can mount this anywhere. This is your button panel. It's very small. Better than those rocker switches. And then it comes with a bunch of power stuff. Here's a big old circuit breaker for it, for the power. Comes with almost all the wiring, extra fuses. Here's your auxiliary power to make it on a key switch. Mounting brackets. This thing is, it's actually pretty slick for the money. I like them. I have them in my Rover. There's the button lead, some power cables. But then this one we went all out. We shouldn't have, but we did. This one comes with a remote so that you can hit the buttons from a remote. If you had this would be nice if you are camping and you set this up in the rear and you wanted to turn your awning lights on or your back lights or something, you could do it from this instead of having to get back in the Jeep. Same thing, this is your main hub. It's all digital, so all the circuits shut off on their own if they're overvolts or shorted, and they will reset all by themselves. Pretty slim, pretty nice piece. Here's your Wi-Fi antenna for your antenna, or for your remote. Same thing. It just has a really slim 6-button panel. Very nice. So I guess this thing lights up in different, you can change the light colors on this too. All kinds of cool stuff. We're also going to be installing this little guy where the cigarette lighter is so that he has more USB outs, because let's be honest, who uses a cigarette lighter anymore for anything else? So we're going to go ahead and get one of these installed. I have 2. I think we're only going to be able to install 1, but yeah, these are pretty neat. It also has an on-off button, so you can turn this whole thing off, turn it all on. So we will be running this to 12 volt instead of ignition. So this will be neat. So we're going to go ahead and decipher all the wiring that is currently in here, label it all, pull out everything. We're going to move some stuff around like I said. Then we're going to get these Auxbeam panels installed and set up. So this is the old VO switch box that was in here. This is pretty bulky. It's older technology. It's got the old relays in it. Still a nice unit. This thing has never failed him. We're just going to go ahead and get this out of here and put a much smaller unit in here. So we have more room for heat dissipation, which is another thing we're going to be working on in the future. So we're going to go ahead and get that labeled. We're probably going to be moving this antenna. I don't even know if it works or goes to anything. And then that's the big old VO switch that we're going to be losing. And we'll be putting a slim probably up in this panel here, so it'll give us that much more real estate, because that's where we're going to put the radio. So I'm going to go through this thing and do some reverse engineering on all the wiring and see what I have to remove, see what I can leave, and then I'll get back to you. But that right there, that is just a mess. I don't know what that is, so we're going to clean that way up. All right, so as I'm tracking down wiring in this thing, one of the ports, one of the switches was front locker and one of them was the rear locker. I know the front axle in this is Kevin Williams' old Dana 60 in the front. I know because I took it off and sent it to Andy. This Jeep must have had an ARB in the front at some point. This Jeep does not, it's not a Rubicon, so it was probably a Sport. So it had ARB switches in it at some point. And if you're familiar with the ARB switches, they come with these little relay boxes. You hook power to them, and then you go to a switch in the dash, and you have a front and a rear locker. Well, these are still installed. These still have power. These power switches went all the way over into that box. So that box has a relay in it, kicks that relay on, comes all the way over here, kicks this relay on, goes all the way back over down to the front axle and engages the front locker. Basically, all this can go away. All of this can go away because the front locker can be on its own switched powered relay block. So all this is going to go away. I'm going to have to trace down the rear wiring because that's going to go away too. All this can come out of here. All this. So this is what happens when you have somebody build a Jeep and then somebody else builds a Jeep and then somebody else builds a Jeep, and then you know they're shortcutting and short. There's so much stuff in this engine bay that doesn't need to be here. I'm going to make a pile right there of all the stuff that doesn't need to be in there. So first we're going to start cutting out all this stuff. Like I said, I'm going to have to find the rear because I know that this Jeep now has an air locker in the rear, not an e-locker. So all that other one is going to have to, I don't even know where it goes. I don't know what it goes to. So that's a whole bunch of wiring that's probably in this Jeep that doesn't need to be there. So we're going to yank all of that stuff out. Also, he's got pillar lights that were plugged into this, and it has this little tiny gauged power wire. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Of course, because there's a bunch more relays over here that turn on to turn on his pillar lights, and there's another one shoved down there that turns that light on. None of these need to be on a separate relay because the new Auxbeam box has its own relays in it and outputs its own power. So all of this is going to go. All this stuff in here is going to go. Yeah, so we are going to clean this engine bay up a lot. All right, in order to do it right, you just got to remove everything, right? So we're just going to do it right from the second go around. So we're going to clean up all that. We're going to vacuum all that shite out of there so that we can get it unmessed up. This apparently doesn't work. So this is that's the radio for the antenna for the radio for the Midland. We're going to be yanking this out. I'm going to be putting a mag base in here, maybe, possibly. So there'll be a mag base somewhere. I'm not sure if I'm going to actually put it in the cowl, so the mag base will go in the cowl, and he's got a much longer antenna, so you'll be able to like screw it into the cowl and it'll like be hidden. I don't know. I don't know if that's radio friendly or not. Might stick it on the roof somewhere, but then the roof has to be open. I don't know. We'll put it somewhere convenient. Maybe in the back. A lot of people run them on the back. As long as the top of the antenna is taller than the Jeep, so that the antenna gets the range and you're not blocked by the Jeep. I do know that. So I don't know where we're going to put it, but we'll put it somewhere. Alright, so we got a new mag base for this antenna. Kind of wired up in here. It's on the passenger side. It'll go on the cowl. And then when the long antenna is on it, it's like a foot above the roof. This is just because you're supposed to have an antenna on it at all times, but I don't want to run that really tall whip when you don't need it, because you don't need it. We got everybody cleaned up in here. This wiring is really nice. All this is now buttoned to back up and ran all the way across. And there's nothing in this frame rail anymore, which is very nice. Lots of room. And we did clean up all of the light harnesses. This will go over in here when it gets there. And everything is ran to basically here. I'm going to mount that box pretty much right here. We did figure out this is the front locker, this is the rear locker. I did extend it so that we could make it all nice over here. Now I did cut this. You guys saw me cut this. This is the windshield squirter. I cut this because if you try to get them off the squirters themselves, most of the time you break the nipples off, and I didn't want to do that. It's very easy to just put an adapter back through here, a little plastic guy. It's much easier than trying to replace your squirters after you broke them off. So, yeah. So now I'll find a convenient place to put this and get this guy wired up. The old bracket looks like it might work. I might chop it up a little bit and then just mount this to that old bracket. Alright, we got the old bracket cleaned up, reinstalled, and it looks like this is going to work out. I want to put this all the way over here, so we're going to have to cut the rest of that out because, I mean, I guess I can go there too, huh? Alright, well, we'll just go there. That'll get me closer, and then we'll just hack this guy off. We'll just drive it from here to there, straight across and around. And after marking it up, do something like that. I think that'll work just fine. And then we'll pop some holes in it, get the thing mounted. And that is your end result. It's mounted. Looks pretty good. Now we just got to run all these guys back into here to all of our buttons, 1 through 6. I also want to verify that this wire is actually on accessory, because I really don't think this Auxbeam panel has to be on when the Jeep is not running, because you have your compressor and everything else that's on here. So I am going to put this on ignition so that it doesn't, you can't leave it on with the Jeep off. So we're just going to go over there and verify. Alright, that guy says that we are in M6, which is first aux ACC, so this should be on ignition. We should be able to test that wire now. Alright, we are on the ground. We are on. It says 0, so now we're going to hit the ignition and see if this comes on. Oh, we are now on. Now let's see if we have power to it. Come on, fingers. Oh, I think we do. Boop. Yes, so now this is ignition, so I will get that plugged into the ignition port back there. Alright, now that we got everybody plugged back in there into their designated buttons, 1 is the compressor and air up, 2 is front locker, 3 is rear locker, 4 is roof bar light, 5 is the pillar lights, 6 is open. So we went from 6 to 5 because I'm going to run the compressor and the air up valve, which I don't know why they're separate, on the same switch. So it's 30 amp, should be just fine. Now we're going to plug the handheld in and make sure all these guys work, and then for giggles I'll plug the antenna in and see if the remote works. Plugged in, so let's see what happens. We go to the ignition. Hey, it works. Okay, so one should be the compressor and the air up solenoid valve. Oh yeah. Front locker. Oh, it makes noise. Rear locker. Can't hear it, but I can barely hear it, but that solenoid's working. Roof light obviously works. And the pillar lights. Pillar lights work. Sweet. So now let's plug in the antenna and make that work. Plug this guy in. Left-handed. Oh, that's magnetic. Oh, I didn't even know that was magnetic. I thought that was a sticky-on cheap plastic. No, that's magnetic. Well, that's kind of cool. Dig the remote out. And survey says, hey, nice. Pillar lights. Nice. Sick. Well, that works. So let's go over here and we'll test this, the rear locker that you can hear, which should be 3. Listen. Okay, well that works. Nice. Haha. So now my original intention is to get rid of this old switch panel head, and I want to mount this slim Auxbeam on that plastic panel that goes right there. And then I have to fish this guy through, which leads me to my next cool tool. Let me show you. I know it's a snap-on tool, right? It's a snap-on tool. But this is a grommet punch. The coolest thing about that is it's hollow. So you can punch this side through a grommet, and then you can feed the wire through, and then you can pull this back out, as long as you feed it the right way. Make sure you feed it the right way, otherwise you're left with the harness side on. Yeah, anyway, don't screw that up. But check this out. Jeeps have this cool little pass-through. It's right there. It's got foam in it. But if you punch that out, it comes all the way out inside of this. So what we're gonna do, just punch that guy through here, and with a little fishing, you can get it right through that hole. So now we just run this up to the top. Ta-da! All right, so up here, mounting this switch guy up here. It's kind of maybe sort of going to be in the way. So what I think we're going to do first is I know I want to mount this radio up here. And you got to remember, this isn't really a rear view mirror. It's a TV. It's a monitor. So you don't really have to see like directly behind you, as long as you can see the monitor. It's got a front camera and rear camera on the fly, as you can see with all the electronics on it. So I'm not really worried about like blocking the rear view of this camera, because it doesn't work like that anyway. So I think what we're gonna do is mount the radio as far over as we can, as to not interfere with this guy. So I'm gonna mount the radio right here as close as I can get it, and then we'll mount the switches under there. Yeah, probably under here. So let's get this radio in there first. All right, and there it is. Pretty much from like the driver's seat. Radio does not get in the way of that rearview mirror at all. As a matter of fact, like I can see everything behind us right now. So that's neat. Now we just gotta mount this guy, and I wanted to mount it basically right here. All right, now I realize there's a lot going on in here, but I think we can get that mounted on the plastic right about there, and it doesn't interfere with the visor or anything else or the mirror, and I think it'll fit really good. So this is what we're gonna do, I think. So let's get it all mounted up so that I could figure out where the holes gotta go. All right, so final install, that's where she's at. Everybody's happy. You can totally see the mirror from here. And you turn the ignition on. Boom! I know you can dim this, I just don't know how to do it yet. I'll read the directions, but as far as that's concerned, we got all the lights working. Everything works, so that's pretty cool. This should have power. So that has power. So, I mean, if you're using the radio, you can keep the radio here. If not, you know, we can just throw it up on top there so that the cable's not bouncing around in your face. But, yeah, sweet. So that concludes the front one. All right, front one is complete. And I mounted the antenna right here under the cowl. It's not in the way of, this is a support strut for the windshield wipers. The actual arm is behind it. It's not going to be in the way. It clears the top. So that is where I put that guy. Yesterday we got the Auxbeam all set up in the front. All the 12 volt works in the front. Today we got to hang a water pump for the shower. We got to put the other Auxbeam in the back of this Jeep. This will not be on auxiliary, so this will be on constant power, so he's going to have to turn it on and off. Reason being, you don't need the truck running when you're taking a shower or camping or hanging out back here with the rear lights on or any other backlights that he's going to have this control. But we do have to find a place to put it, and I think we're going to put it in the new electrical closet. So I think somewhere in here, probably right about here, standing off the ground. So we just got to come up with a little bracket, and then I had this idea. We'll just take this guy, mount it to the floor, mount this guy to the bracket, and I can get all the wires up from underneath into there, and that should work out pretty well. Now, where are we going to put the switches? As far as the switches go, if you're in the back and you have the tailgate open and you're cooking or whatever and whatnot, you probably want to be able to access this. But if you're taking a shower from the door, you'd probably want to be able to access this. So I think we're going to shove it right about there. Right about there. Probably put the pump mounted like this, standing up, right about here. We'll build a little panel in the front to hang off of, so it'll hang off to the Jeep wall, kind of like that. You'll be able to screw on the fill side, and this is the shower side. We'll shower out the door. All right. All honesty, I think the old bracket is actually pretty good. We just stripped all the switches and stuff off of it. The pump mounts underneath, fairly protected, so you're not going to knock anything off. It does stick out just a hair past this bracket, like this way the front of the pump does, but can't really do anything about that, really. So I think I'm just going to clean this guy up and reshoot it black, get rid of all that rust, because it's very bad. But we're going to go ahead and clean this up and just paint it and mount that pump back underneath. And while I was thinking about doing all that, I just went ahead and got it mounted. So she's mounted, looks pretty good. It's very solid. All the wires will fit from underneath. Our power is right here. So power and ground are both gonna go there. And then we'll have so that pump is only 7.5 amps max. So we can run that pump down here. We can run the taillights off this little 5 amp fuse. That still leaves us 2 big fuses for the future. This is gonna work just fine. It'll be protected with the cover. It's kind of off the deck. Yeah. All right, we got this bracket all cleaned up. We got the pump back on this bracket. We have a new lead made. I did. Gotta move this stuff. I did go ahead and got the power and the ground plugged in. And what I did here, oh, love the light. What I did here is we're not running this on the key. We're going to run this off of constant power. So yes, this will always be powered, but you can turn it off on the switch panel. The switch panel will have an off. That's why it's ran this way, because you don't want to have the ignition on in order to take a shower or whatnot. So that is why this box solely is on the second battery. So only the second battery gets chewed up if need be. We do have our power ran for our taillight switch guy. So this will be one switch. This will be the second switch. We're going to go ahead now and get that guy put back on the wall. So that pump maxes out at 6.5 amps. So we got this on a 10 amp. And then the backup lights, they're LEDs. 5 amps should be completely fine to turn those back on. Now all we gotta do left is plug the control switch in and make sure these all work. So now we just plug this guy in. Boop. And turn this guy on. And we don't have power. Oh, ha! Circuit breaker. Boom! We got power now. Ha ha! So then that means this should be the shower. My pump runs. It's a little loud with no water in it. And then the backup light should come on. Boom! Nice. So they all work. Last but not least, where do we mount this guy? I think ultimately we're probably just going to put it back where the other switch panel was, because it's pretty convenient here, and it's out of the way. And if you're going to take a shower, you know, your button, it's right there. And there's already holes there. So we're just going to throw some hardware in this, and that's where she's going to live. Everything is now zip tied in. We got the covers back on. We got the inverter all plugged back in, which still works, which is pretty neat. You just hit the inverter button right here and it turns on. Still pretty rad. And somehow I messed up and I didn't hit play or record or whatever, but we did get the USB thing in the cigarette lighter. It's ridiculously easy to put in. You just pull this panel off, pull the cigarette lighter out, take the two ends, positive, negative, plug it into this, screw this guy in. The cool part is this has a on-off button. But because this is on auxiliary, it doesn't really matter. So it's off when the truck's off or the Jeep's off. So there you go. There you have that. Very easy to put that in. A couple things I wanted to go over about the Auxbeam that I personally do like. One being that each one of these channels has a power and a ground. Not every switch box brain thing has that. They just have individual powers out. Not a deal breaker, but if you are like this and you have your lockers, you don't have to split your ground and your power. You just have your ground and your power right here. And secondly, price point. Can't beat the price point. I know there's much more expensive switch panels out there that do a lot of other cool stuff, but sometimes you don't need all that extra cool stuff. I don't care that the display changes colors. I don't care that it auto resets. It has fuses. Don't care. Again, no shade to some of them other companies. Some of those other ones are really nice. And if you have a race car and you really need the on-off switch and you need the auto reset by just hitting the button, that's awesome. You do need that. And this is probably not going to do it for you in a race car application. But for this, it does just fine. I have them in Phoebes. Love them. They're still kicking today. But anyway, just wanted to cover that real quick. I will put a link and a discount code to the Auxbeams in the description below. And I'm pretty sure that concludes part 2 of turning your Jeep into an RV. Obviously, I'm kidding. It's just a really big Overlander, and he just likes to take everything, including the kitchen sink now. So, and a refrigerator. Puts an ARB refrigerator in here, no problem. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and get this thing cleaned up. There may or may not be a part 3. I have a couple of things I want to try, and if they work, I'm going to show you. If they don't, they don't work. So, anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Until next week. Bye.